Now there are potentially two voices that you can hear. One is that of the mind, and the second is your intuitive presence, isn't it? Now, and I've told you the distinction between those two. If that voice is accompanied by love, peace, not wanting something, you see, is not in a rush for an outcome, then you can trust that voice to be your intuitive presence. But if that voice is always the voice of what's in it for me, what's in it for me, what is this for? If you ask that voice and you find that there's something in this for me, you see, then that is the voice of the mind.
Quite a few things lie in between the two.
Yeah.
It's neither that
Yeah.
nor
Yeah.
this.
Yes. So till if there is a point till it's not clear, you see, it's best to just let it go. Ashtavakra said, the mind is complex, let it go. Try it. And I know you tried it, I know. But the pointing, don't believe your next thought, is not a strategy. You see, strategy means that I still want something from this. That means our starting premise is that there is still a Soumya here who will now use this pointing to become free from this, become free from suffering, anything, you see. But that is not the way to start. The way to start is to see what I truly am right now. Is there a Soumya? There is the appearance of one body. There are these appearances of these thoughts. You see? Who is the witness to them? There seems to be a sense of presence which is primal to my existence, which is my existence itself. Who is the witness even of that? Who is aware even of that? Is it not I? So once we see like this, once we put our inquiry simply just to check, who is this that witnesses all of this? And we find that I am actually this without attributes, with no concern about how life is moving, with no real worry about what is happening on the screen where this movie is playing out. Once we see this for ourselves, then sometimes the question arises, how did I ever delude myself? See, how did I ever delude myself to be contained within this bucket of flesh and blood? And the answer to that question is only this, by believing my thoughts. You see, nothing else is telling you that you are contained. Nothing else is telling you that you are separate. It is only this mind, and the mind which is the same mind seemingly speaking through the mouth of apparent others. See, it is only the mind. Everything else, there is no separation right now. Unless we label something, unless we interpret or judge something. See? So once we start from that perspective, to see what I really am right now, so how do I, so if you flip the question and say, okay, now I'm just this, but it's just so plain. You see? The mind will come like this, it's so plain. Let me delude myself and say that I am contained within this body and I am the subject of what the mind speaks. So how will I make this delusion seem real? There is only one way to do it. It is to believe my thoughts. There is no other way to delude yourself. You see? But if you refuse to, at least for some time, then you will see that this body is moving on its own. Just like these words are coming out on their own. Now I know that the mind can come and say, you said this, maybe you should have said that. It can still say these kind of things, but it has no power. You see, it just comes and goes. Because there is no you which is saying these words. They are just appearing. You see, everything has always been like this. It is not that ever since the starting of the sharing of satsang, these words have just appeared. It has always been that way. But the mind has tried to keep up with that in the past and said, you did this, you should not have done this, look at what you did, look at what another did. This doership has just been a false idea, a fancy idea. So this body has been moving, this mouth has been moving, these hands have been moving on their own. Just like the movement of thoughts happens on its own. Many times when we have initially come to satsang, we also came with the idea that I am thinking. Is it true? You see that I am thinking this, I have so many negative thoughts, I am just thinking this. Then we look and check, so how are you thinking? How are you creating your next thought? You say, I can create my next thought. Then when we look, you see that it just arises. The thought is just arising. We cannot predict it. To predict it, you have to wait for the thought itself to come. It is just arising. In the same way, our actions are also just arising. All these words are just arising. Everything has always been moving on its own, just like the movement of an ocean, and all the waves which seem to come and to dissolve in that ocean. But now the difference is that there is the power of the ocean to believe itself to be a wave. What is that power? The power of belief, the power of identity. So that which is the Supreme Lord is now playing the game of believing itself to be an individual entity. God pretending to be a person is I believing my next thought. So this game God is playing for its own enjoyment. And this game that it is playing, also coming out of the delusion, is also for its own enjoyment. That's all that is going on. So if you were to somehow drop the story, drop the past, drop our ideas of what happened to me, because even that is just made up, basically. No, if there were two of you, even if you were twins and you went through the same experiences, if you were to speak to the twins, both twins, I'm married to one of two twins, so you'll see that they could have gone through the same experiences in childhood, but one will have a very clear idea that this is what happened that day, when we were young at the dining table or anything, and the other one will have a different idea. But we are so convinced, okay, this is what it was. This is what happened with me. This is what this one said. It is just previous chapters from the story, and mostly we are just writing our interpretation of what is happening, coming from the mind into our storybook. So when we stop accessing this kind of mental conceptual stories, then now you will find that life is so full of freshness and wonder and joy. In a story, what do we want? We want the same things, but we want them in our terms. We want them with our idea. Okay, this is what happened, this is what I did, and therefore I got all of these things. But right now, what is missing? Truly, what is missing right now, before you think about it? So the addiction only is to, so even if you notice, I say right now what is missing, many of us have this impulse first to go to the mind and say, okay, what is missing? What? No, but even before that, if you just see, if you just look, you find that there is no such thing as lack actually. There is no such thing as bondage, and therefore there is no such thing as freedom.